What's up, guys? Welcome to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're going to be talking all things 80s movies. I already see that we got Uncle V here, said he's anticipating the most handsome man in the world. Well, he's arrived and he looks handsome as usual. And tell him Freddie sent you is here as well. So we got a bunch of people. All right. What's up, Freddie? What's up, Uncle V? Glad to see you guys. Love it when you show up. I didn't expect anyone to be here waiting for me. I mean, that's never happened to me in my whole life. No one's usually waiting on me. They just wait for me to leave. That's usually how it works. Anyway, guys, so today we're here to talk the 1980s, the greatest decade for film. So I should probably tell you guys right off the top, I was born in 1992. So that means that I missed the 80s. I didn't get to see any of these movies in theaters, unfortunately. So I saw them either just on VHS or on TV, or just, hey, when they got re-released in theaters, I got to see a bunch of them. Kind of lucky on that sense that I've been fortunate enough. And Kevin Ellis here says, "Hey, John," and I said, "Hey, what's up, Kevin? How you doing?" Matt Kish is in the chat here on Uncle V. All right. At least Matt's in the chat this week, and he's happy to. I guess he's going to talk to Matt. And we'll start right off with Kevin L asked, "What is the most overrated action movie?" Ooh, most overrated. This is going to be a little controversial, but I actually think it's Predator. Predator gets put up there with some of the greatest action movies of all time, and I don't even think it's in the top 3 Arnold 80s action movies. You got to put Terminator and Commando above that, in my opinion. And then The Running Man. I think The Running Man is hugely underrated as far as action movies go, especially 80s action movies, 80s Arnold movies. And then, if you throw in his comedies, Twins is probably better than a lot of them, too. So, that's probably my vote for that. Can I get Matt for live, too? Matt, I don't think can come in here on this chat. He's busy right now. But at least he's in the chat. He can ask me a couple questions. Like, he wrote, "What's up, fellas?" So he's in here chatting with you guys. Most underrated of the 80s. Ooh. Or does that say 89ers? I assume you meant to say 80s. Yeah, you did. The most underrated film of the 1980s. Oh, that is tough to pick one film that is just completely underrated. I got to rule right out of Spielberg. Fuck. That's a tough one. I haven't been asked a question. I can't even think of an underrated 80s movie. Maybe Silverado, because I got Westerns on my mind. That movie that was written by the same Lawrence Kasdan. Lawrence Kasdan wrote, he directed that. He also directed The Big Chill. So, yeah, Silverado. If you guys are fans of 80s Westerns movies, there wasn't many out there, but that had Kevin Kline in that movie. That movie is really underrated, and it moves along like an 80s movie, but it's still a Western. So yeah, off the top of my head, I'm gonna go Silverado. Let's see. Uncle V. Oh, all right. Well, at least Matt's in the chat. Best movie from the year 1986. Oh, Faith Williams in here wrote, "Hey, that's my wife." 1986. What movies came out in the 1986? I got it off the top of my head. Okay, was Back to the Future 1986? If that was 1986, that's definitely number 1, but that might have been 85. Hold on a second. Let me pull up 86 in my phone here, just so I have everything in front of me and I don't look like a buffoon. Let's see. Plus, I'm blind, so that doesn't help anyone. Oh my God, The Color of Money was 1986? Yeah, that's probably it. Top Gun and The Fly. Okay, so 86 was definitely a great year. What won the Academy Award that year? That wasn't the year of Gandhi, right? Because Gandhi, I know, won 1 year. Gandhi actually is a great movie. I don't know if you guys are into those types of movies, but that was a big epic and introduced us all to what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank on him? Have you ever seen anything from the Deathstalker series? No, I have not. What is that? Damn, The Fly. Has to be Top Gun, Matt wrote. Yeah, it's probably Top Gun as far as, but Tom Cruise put out The Color of Money and Top Gun in the same year. What a year for Tom Cruise. And he's still, he just won't stop. But he doesn't do the dramas anymore. Now he just does all the action movies. We'll never see Tom Cruise get nominated for an Academy Award again. He's just, That's not what he does anymore, unfortunately. But back in the 80s, he was trying everything. That's where you got to start. You had Risky Business in the 1980s. And then once we got to the 1990s, Tom Cruise was Tom Cruise. So back in the 80s, he was still trying things out. He wasn't the superstar until we got to really probably like 92 is when he was in everything. He had a few good men that year. And I think that was a year before The Firm as well. So he was flying on all cylinders. But yeah, for 1986, it's probably The Fly. But The Fly or Top Gun, that's too hard. Cocktail ruled. Ah, yes, Cocktail did rule. What year did that come out? What year did Cocktail come out? Oh my God, Cocktail is great. I'm addicted to love. Yeah, Tom Cruise he was singing and dancing. Yeah, obviously, he probably went to 3 or 4 months of bartending school for that because he's Tom Cruise, so he had to learn how to do it. But I love Cocktail and Roadhouse. Those movies could only come out in the 1980s because you had to probably be super drunk or super high on coke to even write that stuff down. Like, wait a second. All right. So he's a bouncer, but he's the best bouncer that we've ever had. He can do anything. Everybody's scared of him, but we don't need him just to defend the club. I know he's going to save the bar. Once he saves the double deuce, then he's going to take care of everybody in the town, and we're going to get this guy out of here. Basically, Roadhouse is a Western, but in modern times, and replace the hero with a coked up bouncer played by the amazing Patrick Swayze, the late Patrick Swayze. And that's what you get Patrick Swayze for. Obviously the looks, but he can also act. You ever seen Ghost? He's great in Ghost. Arnold had what actor owned? So Uncle V wrote Deathstalker was a Conan rip. Oh, I have to see that then. It's probably good. Is it like in the trauma sense of filmmaking? Because I'm kind of Uncle V to give you a little idea of what I've been thinking lately. I've been kind of in a trauma mood. I want to go back and watch a little bit more of those, mainly because of Guardians 3 and the James Gunn connection. So I got to check that out. What actor owned the 80s? Matt wrote Arnold, hands down. Yeah, Arnold. Arnold or Stallone. As far as actors go, that was the 80s. That was the 80s superheroes. We didn't have superheroes in the 80s. We had juiced up, big jacked men just saving the world, flipping cars over, basically what the Fast and Furious movies do now. But you weren't going there for the franchise. You were going there to see the actors. So you were going there to see Sly Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then once, Die Hard came around, you were going there to see Bruce Willis. The names sold the movies back in the 80s. And the drama side, you had Tom Cruise. But on the action side, no bigger name put your ass in a seat than Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. That's why you were either a Stallone guy or you were an Arnold guy or girl, whoever, whatever one. You always picked a side. You were one or the other. And, if it's up to me, gun to my head, it's always going to be Arnold because, he was the Terminator. What else can you say? And also, well, I guess in the 70s was pumping iron because he was also, even then, it's just, Arnold's Arnold, man. He's a god. Just don't let him get around your maid. That's the only big thing with him. Yeah, but that was what actor only what else we got? Arnold. Everyone said Arnold. Everyone agrees with Matt. I can certainly give you some recommendations. Yeah, I might have to take some recommendations on some of that trauma stuff, Uncle V, because the Toxic Avenger 4 film collection's coming out later in the year, and I love the first one. I haven't seen the sequels, and then Romeo and Juliet, if anything's kind of in that vein, they're silly and ridiculous and over the top, but there's still so much fun. The trauma movies, I absolutely, they have a certain charm to them. You got to be in a mood for them though. But the Toxic Avenger, I feel like, is still gonna be the best even after seeing all them, because the Toxic Avenger, it's a great movie just in general. Uncle V said, demonic toys. What 80s movie looks the best on 4K? Oh, wow. That is a loaded question. So I've just started doing the Indiana Jones movies, and those pretty much came out in the 80s. And then, obviously the last one came out in, what was that? 07, 06, 08, somewhere in that one. And then the new one, The Dial of Destiny, is coming out pretty soon. Early reviews are not great, which is unfortunate because we are getting Harrison Ford back, I'm assuming, and he has said for the last time the man is 80 years old. So yeah, watching those 4Ks, they're really unbelievable. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out in 1981. It does not show on screen at all. That movie is absolutely gorgeous. Those are some of the best looking 4Ks, and the first three from the 80s. So those are some fantastic looking 4Ks. Top Gun is another fantastic looking 4K from the 1980s. Uncle V loved Indy as well. Yeah, Indy's he's one of the best. I mean, Harrison Ford was Han Solo and Indiana Jones, and then in 1982 was Rick Deckard. All in a 5 year span, he puts out three of the greatest characters of all time, and he still had enough in the tank for 1993 when he had his best role, better than Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and Rick Deckard when he decided to play Dr. Richard Kimball in The Fugitive, even though he didn't win an Academy Award, but Tommy Lee Jones did. So, fantastic movie as well. Let's see what else we got going on. Do you think we will ever get Terminator 1 on 4K? That's the $1 million question that we've been asking since we started this channel. Will we ever get the Terminator on 4K? My gut says yes. We're 1 year away from its 40th anniversary, if you could believe that. So if I gun to my head with the way the market is moving and the way they release 4Ks, I would say next year. There's also constant rumors about James Cameron doing new scans of all his movies. I've heard The Abyss is coming to 4K since what? It's been almost 2 full years now. Haven't heard anything else. We still don't have an official press release on Avatar 1, 2, True Lies, any of his movies on 4K. We know there's a new 4K scan of Titanic. So James Cameron, I feel like when he has the rights to all these movies, he doesn't do the best job of putting these out on 4K for some reason. I just don't understand why. I know he works with Disney, and Disney's another one who's not a big supporter of 4K, so that causes a lot of the problems. Is just Disney holding on to the rights to a lot of these movies. It's the same reason why we haven't gotten Aliens or Seven, is because these scans are supposedly done. They just haven't released them because that's how Disney is with their physical media. Look at what they do with their IMAX scans. They don't release them to the general public. If for any of the physical media collectors, you have to get Disney Plus if you want to watch these movies in IMAX. And I watched Guardians 2 recently on Disney Plus with the IMAX scenes, and it's gorgeous. And it would have been so much better on the disc, but they just won't do it. And it's just unfortunate. And that's why we still haven't gotten Terminator 1 on 4K. And my gut says we will get it at some point. But then you get the fear of like what happened with Terminator 2, where it's a bad scan. I don't know. I hope we get it. I hope that Arrow Video gets a hold of it, because it's definitely something that they would probably do the best work with. Look at what they did with RoboCop. That's another Orion Pictures release, and it's one of Arrow's best releases in my opinion. What other movies came out? So in the 80s, we also didn't have a lot of superhero movies. All we got was Superman, and then in 1989, we got Batman. Batman was probably the biggest blockbuster of the 1980s. No film in the 1980s was bigger than Batman. Batman Fever took off. That was when one of the biggest summer blockbusters to ever hit the screen. Michael Keaton. If you guys were, I don't know, I wasn't alive in the 80s, but I've seen plenty of documentaries about the fact that people were pissed that Michael Keaton was Batman. So if people think that fans today are toxic when it comes to DC and Marvel, same stuff was happening back in the day. People wrote letters. You know how much time that takes? They wrote a letter. They're like, huh. Yeah. Screw you for hiring a 5'8" Batman that looks like Michael Keaton, because he is Michael Keaton, and I don't want him to be Batman. Then they went and put postage on that, and they mailed that to Warner Brothers, who just immediately put it in a shredder. So it's pretty funny to me. Let's see what else is going on in the chat right now. Matt wrote, T1 on 4K has to be my most wanted release ever, and yes, Arrow has to do it. I agree with John and Matt. And as a 80s Batman, ruled the best. Kilmer is the best. Wow. You put Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is the best Batman? Ooh. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm gonna be I'm gonna break your heart right now. I think that Val Kilmer was actually the worst Batman, even worse than George Clooney, in my opinion. I've read that he had trouble with the suit, and that was a big issue for him, and he couldn't hear anything. But yeah, whenever he was playing Batman, he didn't feel like Batman. And then Bruce Wayne, he just was always very monotone. And Val Kilmer can act. I know Val Kilmer can act. Have you ever seen Tombstone? He's phenomenal in that, and he the same year. But I think a lot of his problems was with the bat suit. If you saw that documentary Val. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's see. Ooh, getting a little ahead of myself here. Ooh, Anthony Gonzalez is here. What's up, Anthony? Batman 89 is amazing and still my second favorite Batman movie after The Dark Knight. A few people on YouTube hate on it too much nowadays. Well, I can promise you. Oh, Matt said no. Matt said Kilmer or Affleck. Oh my God, those are the worst. Who's the better Batman, Kilmer or Affleck? Actually, if you're comparing Val Kilmer and Ben Affleck, I think Ben Affleck is still a better Batman. I actually have Ben Affleck's Batman right over here, staring at me at all times. I do not like the movies he's in, but I thought Ben Affleck did a good job as Batman. Val Kilmer, like I said, just it didn't work. He can act, but I feel like he had a lot of, at least if you watch his documentary, he'll tell you that it was a lot of personal struggles and also the suit. Suit can cause problems. So it's not as practical as you think. That's why it makes Batman. And you're right, though. It's crazy. Even like one of my favorite people who I listen to on the internet, he told me that he saw Batman 89 in theaters like 11 times that summer, but he just says it doesn't hold up. And that's crazy to me because Batman 89, I think, holds up incredibly well. Is it dated because do certain things date that? Yes. The Prince soundtrack dates it, the special effects date it, but they also created an original world back in 1989. They did this all on backlots in London. They built Gotham City. It feels like a real lived in city because they actually built a real lived in city. Like I saw Fast X, Matt and me, we saw Fast X on Friday. You could just see that, there is some stuff that they get to work with, but the rest is just done on computers. There's just something about a real living and breathing world, having the actors have something to act with. Everybody is there, are all on the same set. You notice that stuff nowadays, and obviously the Danny Elfman score for 1989's Batman is fantastic. It sets a tone, it sets a mood. I understand that it's probably not for everyone. It's kind of probably like people like in my age group going back to the Superman movies from the 70s and 80s, and they probably think that those they age well. But I think 89's Batman has aged like a fine wine. It's still perfect. I watched it again this week, 2 nights in a row, just like to fall asleep to it. I watched half one day and I watched half the next day. Never rub another man's robar. Just love Jack Nicholson, man. He's perfect. 10 out of 10 performance in that movie. I agree. Kilmer also above Affleck. Thank you. Oh, Martha. That Martha stuff really that killed me. And Uncle V wrote, I didn't mind Affleck as well. And James Hellen's in here, and I know James Hellen, Jimmy boy, is a big fan of the 1986 Transformers movie, and so I always crap all over the Transformers movies because I think they're atrocious, all of them, except that 1986 Transformers movie, which also has a 4K Blu-ray release. So if you are a fan of it, definitely check that out. You got the touch. You got the power. I'm saying that like Mark Wahlberg and Boogie Nights, but that's all from that soundtrack. Man, definitely check out that one. Also, fun fact, you know who Orson Welles is, the guy who made Citizen Kane. That's his last performance ever was in 1986's Transformers. It's a little fun fact for you. I love that movie, though. Matt Kish wrote, all right, lunch is over. Back to work. Have fun, fellas. All right, Matt. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good thing you put Dexter as your picture, by the way, because if people had to see your face, you would have been people would have been upset. And Jim wrote back, agreed. Their horrible 1986 soundtrack is superb. He was a unicorn. Yes, he was. I love that movie. Some miniature work from the 80s is more impressive than a lot of CGI work today, Uncle V wrote. And I agree with that 110%. You see it on the Star Wars movies. A lot of that stuff is all done with just miniatures or matte paintings, and like it's a lost art. We simplified it with computers, and yes, I love having new technology. New technology allows me to do things like this because I can put a computer and a microphone in my house. Back in the day, you have to go to a studio and do everything there. Like now, if you want to record voiceover narration, you just do it in your house. You don't got to go to a narration studio like they used to make you do. But I feel like we lost, just like how social media kind of, yes, we're all closer together, but yet we're kind of pulled apart. I feel like not having real living and breathing sets and real practical effects are hurting the film industry as a whole, in my personal opinion. Back in the 80s, this is just before CGI took off. We had some semblance of CGI back in the 1980s, for example, Tron. And, people will tell you that doesn't look good, but that's still a fun 80s movie, in my opinion. I think you can have a great time with Tron and go back and watch that. Tron Legacy is all right. Who did the score? I forgot. It was somebody. It was a big score. Daft Punk. They did the score for Tron Legacy. That was a fun movie too. Um, Jim Ryland wrote, "Tell me you didn't cry when Optimus died." I did cry. I am surprised that they haven't done a live action version of 1986's Transformers movie, because I feel like most people feel like that's the only movie where they ever got the story and the plot completely right. I mean, I guess maybe they don't want to go back and because you already have it, but I mean, they remake everything. Like they've remade Suicide Squad 5 years after the original. So what can you say about that? It just happens. Fallen Fallen Fiendish Angel Road. I love Transformers. They're all so good. I know we were talking about that yesterday. By the way, I don't know if you saw my short, buddy, but I put a short out for the movie 13 from 2003. I watched that. Man, that movie, it's brutal. I hadn't seen it. I saw it when it came out, and I guess I erased it from my memory because I didn't remember anything watching it. But that movie got me. That movie was a tough watch, but so realistic, so good. So actually, if you guys, everyone else in the chat and everyone else is watching right now on the replay, go see the movie 13. I promise you, you won't regret it. You're just gonna need a real pick me up after. So yeah, people do love the Transformers movies. They're just not for me, except for the 1986 movies. 80s movies you wish got a sequel. Wow. That's a tough question. What movie from the 1980s do I wish got a sequel? Well, Twins, there was always that rumor of triplets with Eddie Murphy that was supposed to get a sequel, and that's pretty much dead, and it should be dead. I don't think we need a sequel, but they could have done a sequel to that. It's just, we don't need it now. K9 got 2 sequels. I love that movie. Turner and Hooch could have got a sequel. They set it up with those puppies. Speaking of another dog movie, what else in the 1980s? I talked a little bit about Silverado. That could have got a sequel. Nobody thought we were going to get a sequel to Blade Runner, and we did finally. So that would have been pretty high up on the list if we didn't already get that. Let me see. Look over to my left. What other 80s movies? We got how many sequels to Lethal Weapon? Also, we might be getting Lethal Weapon 5. So who knows? I've heard the rumors about that, but I wish that would have got, I guess we got to leave that alone. We don't need more sequels to Lethal Weapon. They're getting too old. Now they are actually getting too old for this shit. What other movies did in the 1980s that needed a sequel? Trying to think. Anything? You guys have any recommendations for some movies that you guys want to see as a sequel? Let me see. Also, tell him Freddie said Star Wars: The Next Generation thoughts. Star Trek: The Next Generation thoughts. All right, that's what I thought. So. Fallen Fiendish Angel also wrote, I did cry when when Optimus died. Yeah, that's one of the saddest movies. So I am not a Star Trek guy. I've always been a Star Wars guy. You're either one or the other, but I do actually own this 4K set, and I watched Star Trek the Motion Picture a couple of months ago when I first got this set, and I thought the movie it bored me to tears. I just could not get into it. I had seen Wrath of Khan before. I'm gonna go back and watch them, but just never was a Star Trek guy, and now I'm too afraid to go back because I don't have enough time to probably watch everything, and I'm gonna want to watch the original series and everything, and I just don't have that kind of time. I respect the Star Trek series. Honestly, if I ever got into it, they deal with things in a more philosophical, a more intelligent way. The Star Trek show and the movie, and I feel like it's definitely up my alley more than other stuff. But never got into it. It's just I was on the Star Wars train, and that train kept going. So I was never a Trekkie, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean I have anything against them. I just never got into it just because of timing, not because of I have a hatred for Star Trek. It unfortunately was one of those things that fell to the wayside, which is my fault. Let's see. John Doe Juggler. Hey, what's up, dude? I'm glad I caught up this week. I hope you're doing well today. I am, buddy. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to actually stop in this week and come and hang out for a little while. We're talking all things 80s movies. So anything you want to talk about, man, any movies you want to hear my thoughts on, feel free. Anything you want me to read out loud, I'm here for it. Definitely into it. Scanners 4K odds. Tell him Freddie sent you wrote that one. That's coming. That's 110% coming because that one already has a Blu-ray release, so it's got a scan. I think it even might say it has a new 4K scan on it. So that's actually the exact reason why I haven't grabbed that Blu-ray yet, is because I know that that 4K scan of Scanners is 100% coming. And who doesn't want to see that head just blow up in 4K, in beautiful 4K? And yeah, oh, this is a response to 13 Fallen Finish Angel. Yeah, I loved it. I really think 13 is one of the most realistic approaches to really becoming a teenager that I've ever seen. Shooting that on handheld too in Los Angeles. You know, Los Angeles is one of the most photogenic places you can ever film a movie. Look how many popular movies have been filmed in Los Angeles, and they look beautiful. They made Los Angeles look ugly and dirty and grimy. I mean, Holly Hunter was incredible in that movie, and she got an Academy Award nomination for it. But it was great. That movie it's brutal. It's a tough watch though, man. And anyone who's gonna watch that, just know that going in more. Love to see more Gibson. Yeah, Mel Gibson, man. He did that Santa Claus movie a couple years ago that I didn't get to check out, but I really did want to see that. But Mel Gibson made Braveheart, man. As long as he made Braveheart and Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson. What are you gonna do? I mean, he's back, right? Well, he did a movie, Hacksaw Ridge, a few years ago. That was pretty good. What is the cheesiest 80s movies? Well, The Toxic Avenger would be number one. The 80s were just filled with it, Kevin. With not toxic, with cheesy 80s movie. I think that's one of the key features. Chopping Mall. That's one of the big things about the 80s in general, is how much the cheese was just overflowing. It was basically a deli in there, and I love that. But Cobra is just ridiculous. You're a disease and I'm the cure. Commando, like anything that Arnold and Stallone were doing, were pretty much a little bit of cheese. Even like I said earlier with Predator, you know, you get that shot of them with just their arms. Like somebody had to write that down and say, hey, let's make sure we zoom in on their arms. Guys, go make sure someone goes over there and puts the baby oil on them, shine them up real nice because we have to get this shot. Roadhouse is one of the most ridiculous movies that I have ever seen. Cocktail. I love all these movies. I love 80s cheesy movies. Those are my go-to movies when I want to feel good because they're just fun. You know, there's nothing ever going wrong in them. Like usually, you know, everything's very lighthearted. Even what would be serious situations turn out not to be. So, you know, I think I love that. You know, any Rambo movie after First Blood is a complete cheese fest. No complaints there. Um, James Allen wrote the original Star Trek series is bueno. So that means good in Spanish. I have to check that out. And then Fallen Phoenix Angel wrote the movie that set up a sequel is a B movie back in '86, and it was called Dolls. It was Cronenberg film, and it set up another one, but unfortunately never saw production. So I wonder about that because Dolls was a Stuart Gordon movie, actually. So I wonder if they used the same script. Stuart Gordon shot 1986's Dolls in using the same set that he used with From Beyond, actually. I think he shot Dolls first, but Dolls actually came out after, which is strange, but that's what happens. Like you can actually notice the same sets. Dolls is great. From Beyond is great. Stuart Gordon made a lot of cheesy 80s movies. Speaking of that, cheesy 80s horror movies, if you've ever seen Reanimator, that's right up the alley. I mean, how many sequels, speaking of cheesy 80s movies, did we get from slashers? I mean, yeah, they all kind of started out serious. At Nightmare on Elm Street, the first two are pretty serious. And then once we get to the Nightmare on Elm Street 3, that's it. You know, welcome to prime time, bitch. That's it. Now Freddy's the cheesiest 80s character going. I mean, he ended up even getting a TV show. That should tell you all you need to know about what they were doing to Freddy Krueger in the 1980s. Tell him Freddy said Death Ringers could have got a sequel. Actually, Dead Ringers has a remake show on Amazon right now. I'm curious, has anyone seen that? I think it stars Rachel Weisz, or Rachel Weisz, rather. You know, Mrs. Daniel Craig, and she's playing the twins now instead of Jeremy Irons. That's a 1980s movie, by the way. Dead Ringers. If you haven't seen that, Jeremy Irons should have won this Academy Award for Dead Ringers. Instead, he ended up winning it for Reversal of Fortune, which was in the 90s. but he is fantastic in Dead Ringers. And I haven't seen the show yet. I'm curious because the movie is my favorite from David Cronenberg, actually. So I would love that. Shamrock Bolts is here. Hey, Shamrock. Hey, John, late to this one. No big deal, buddy. Just glad you showed up. I appreciate you being here. The same guy and did Reanimator and such. Yeah, that was my bad. Sorry about that, Fallen Phoenix Angel. And Talon Freddy says that Fear City is a gem. I don't think I've seen Fear City. Have I? 80s Punisher. Oh, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. Was that the 1980s? Or is Fear City a 1980s Punisher? I have to see that one. Speaking of Toxic Avengers, are you getting a new 4K box set? Oh, 110% I'm getting that 4K box set. Waiting for that price to drop. It's still in the 90s. I have a hunch that is going to, if you pre-order on Amazon, you'll get the sale price, but I haven't decided where I'm going to get it from yet. That 100, I think it'll be right in the $80 range, which is in the sweet spot. I don't know how they're going to make those movies look good in 4K. I'm curious because those movies look bad on purpose. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. Obviously you can't clean up too much the costume design. They swap actors in the middle. All the stuff you love from Trauma is in the Toxic Avengers movies, but I haven't seen them all, so I'm very excited for that. But I'm 110% getting that, Mr. John Doe Juggalo. And Faith Williams wrote, I'm so mad I can't watch this. My service is horrible. It's all right. You're very fortunate already that you get to be married to me. So you're the luckiest woman in the chat as it is. Best war movie from the 80s. Platoon. Gotta be Platoon. I wouldn't have said this until I actually saw the 4K Blu-ray last year, which to my surprise, I guess I didn't watch other people's reviews of it when it came out. And people didn't like that 4K. They thought it was too clean, which I thought so also a little bit, but I thought it worked for the movie. But a lot of people don't love that Platoon 4K. I actually tested it out again. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see what everyone else sees. I think this is gorgeous. What a great 4K we got. But that was Oliver Stone, won the Academy Award for Best Picture for that movie. Introduced us to Charlie Sheen. Willem Dafoe was around by then, but this is like Willem Dafoe on the rise. But has to be Platoon. Clint Eastwood did a war movie that my dad really likes from the 1980s. I think it's Heartbreak Ridge, maybe. I really like that one. I've watched that with him a couple times. I know that Clint Eastwood, that's one of his early directorial roles. I want to say it's like the mid 80s, but that's a really underrated war movie from the 1980s also. Shamrock Balls wrote, John, your top 3 80s movies. And right underneath he wrote, for me, I guess it's Batman, Back to the Future, and the Terminator. See, that's not fair, Shamrock Balls, because Terminator and Batman 89 are definitely 2 of my top 3. And then I guess at number 3, I haven't put any thought into Back to the Future. I'm not as high on that as everybody else is, but what else would I put up there for the 1980s? I might pick another Tim Burton, Michael Keaton one and pick Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice. I go back and forth with my top 3 Tim Burton. Like Batman's always number 1, but it's like, it's still Batman with Tim Burton, and even Tim Burton has said, like, he didn't get the full creative control, but he did with Beetlejuice. So Beetlejuice might be really high up there. Oh, Poltergeist, Blade Runner. I can't pick 3. The Thing, all that came out in the same weekend. That's too hard for me to narrow it down. The Terminator and Batman are 1 too, though. It was my fault. No, it wasn't your bad. This is from my False Phoenix. It was my fault for saying Cronenberg. I messed that up pretty bad. It's all right. We recovered from it. I just wasn't sure if maybe they used the same script or something. That does happen where it gets left on the floor and someone else comes and picked it up. So, John Doe Juggler, what's your favorite comedy of the 1980s? It's either Beverly Hills Cop or it's maybe Turner and Hooch. I'm a big Turner and Hooch guys. A big Turner and Hooch guy. I mean, it's one of my personal favorites, if you can believe that, from the 1980s. That's just one I grew up with, and I watched it all the time. So as far as comedies go, Twins. That's another big one for me. Yakety yak, don't go back. I mean, Arnold doing comedy. Who would have thought that would be a thing? Michael Keaton was cranking out comedies in the 80s as well that I truly, truly loved. What did he do? What was that used car movie he did? That one was really fun. Johnny Dangerously was in the 1980s. He was doing that. He did that other movie with Christopher Lloyd in the 1980s. So he was firing on as far as the comedies go. Michael Keaton was a big one that I love. I mean, anything Eddie Murphy did in the 1980s. I'm in a real mood. She's in the chat right now. I'm in the mood to watch Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd. I haven't seen that one in a long time. That's one of the best from the 1980s. Eddie Murphy was the king of the 1980s as far as comedy goes. I like the movie Moving. I've said that a lot with Richard Pryor. That's a really underrated one for me. So Stuart George is in here. He's like, hi from the UK. Can't do live. Can't do live wives. Just come and having our food. Oh, are you having? Oh, looks like fish and French fries. Nice. I'm glad that you got to show up in here. I really do appreciate that, Stuart George. Glad that you made it to the chat and everything like that. Thanks for being here. I really do appreciate that, man. We were just talking spaghetti westerns on my other video. What about Aliens? Shamrock Balls wrote. Aliens, where would I put that? I don't know if I put that in my top 5 of the 1980s. It's high, but I still think Alien is a better movie. Aliens is definitely more in line with what you get from, James Cameron movies, but Aliens is fantastic. It's still the second best 80s movies, 80s second best Aliens movies, but I don't think it's the best of the 1980s. I actually think from the I might put The Abyss above Aliens in James Cameron's list, if I'm being honest. Thinking about it, but I've seen The Abyss twice because you can never get it on anything. And then got to talk my daughter into watching Beetlejuice tonight. Shamrock, you got to tell me if she loves it. I think that movie holds up so well. Again, speaking of practical designs and beautiful sets and beautiful production design, can you go worse? Can you do worse than Beetlejuice? I don't think so. 80s Kevin Elroy, 80s movies you want put out by Scream Factory. Well, Scream Factory actually Scream and Shout do put out pretty much everything. Actually, you can probably see it right here because I'm doing a review this week. But 3 O'Clock High, that's a review for Carlos. He wanted to. I never saw this movie, so this is actually a Shout. This is a Shout Select release. I believe it or not. I'll show it to you guys here real quick. But yeah, look at that. That's just for a little known 80s movie that is a lot of fun if you haven't seen that yet. Check that one out. But Shout Factory has pretty much put out a ton of these like little known 80s like horror movies or little known 80s teen comedies, anything. They've had their hands on everything. I can't think of anything that Shout really hasn't gone near. Kino Lorber even has put out some of those movies. Has anyone put out She Devil yet on Blu-ray or 4K? Because that's one that really needs an upgrade and as an 80s movie that fits definitely in line with Shout Factory because they actually did something similar to that recently. And I think that Shout Factory, if they haven't done She Devil, that's a really underrated 80s comedy starring, of all people, Meryl Streep and Roseanne Barr, if you can believe that. John Dojalo, Beverly Hills Cop is so good. I love Beverly Hills Cop. That is still my favorite Eddie movie. It's incredibly, like, I hear people always say 48 Hours or even Coming to America, which, again, both great. But are they as good as Beverly Hills Cop? No. Martin Brest did Beverly Hills Cop too. Judge Reinhold, that movie, John Astin. Great movies. Shamrock Box. Somebody wrote Multiplicity. That's a great movie. I think that's the 1990s though. Okay, let me see. I'm losing the chat, guys. Got a little out of hand there. That was from Tell 'em Freddy sent you. Videodrome 4K, import or wait? So Videodrome just came to 4K from Arrow Video. We have it here in the United States from Criterion. That's on Blu-ray here. So do I think that Criterion will update that? I do think so. I think that's the reason why Arrow Video put out that 4K. Something similar just happened with The Lighthouse, where The Lighthouse put out they put out the 4K Blu-ray for the UK, I believe, while here in the US, A24 did the 4K themselves. And I want to show you guys something. This is what the 4K would look like from The Lighthouse if you bought this from A24. Just want to show you. It's beautiful. Now, that's not a 4K. That's a Blu-ray. That's my fault. I bought the Blu-ray. I was going to call them up, scream at them, and tell them that they screwed me over and sent me the Blu-ray. But turns out I clicked Blu-ray, and, it was $50 for that Blu-ray. And it's no one's fault but my own. So you can't say that. So yeah, I think Videodrome will get that. Shamrock Balls wrote favorite comedy of National Lampoon's Vacation and Airplane. 110% on both of those. I think Christmas Vacation is better than that, though. That's still the 80s, 1989. Airplane, though, Airplane holds up so well. That feels like it's 1980, I'm pretty sure. Same year as Caddyshack. And that movie picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. You get the guy from Robert Stack from Unsolved Mysteries, which is an 80s gem of a show that I still go back. If you live in the United States, you can watch every episode on Peacock. I do that anytime I'm feeling nostalgic. And Faith Williams, my wife, again wrote, "Do you miss your wife?" I sure do, baby. Wait till you come home and you get to see your house and your dogs and get to see your handsome and lucky husband, I guess, right? Shamrock wrote Beverly Hills Cop. Yes, again, love Beverly Hills Cop. Stuart George wrote, yes, fish and chips. I'm jealous. I'm hungry. I haven't. All I've had today are some donuts, some coffee. As you guys see, my wife's not here, so I will probably tonight be eating Taco Bell again because it's the best food I've ever had. Uncle V, gentleman, woman, I must depart. Awesome stream, handsome. Thank you, Uncle V, for showing up. I really do appreciate that, buddy. The original Russ wrote, "Hey, John, how you doing? I'll probably be watching most of your stream on replay. Just wanted to chime in and let you know I appreciate the topic. Rock on, brother. Thank you, the Original Fuzz. Original Fuzz has a YouTube channel as well, guys. A good one. Make sure you go over to his channel. If you see his name here in the chat, go over there and subscribe to him. He's a great guy. He's been following us since the very beginning, and he's doing some phenomenal work. So for anyone fans of 4K Blu-rays, he gives you some good tips. Check him out too. I promise you won't be disappointed. Shamrock Balls. Wait, no way. I really don't like The Abyss. I think The Abyss is criminally underrated. I think that's one of James Cameron's only movies where he actually got the emotion like really right. Like it's a love story. I mean, it's a love story with aliens, but it's a love story. You really do care about Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Master Antonia's relationship. I mean, the ring thing is a little stupid at the very end, but I thought they did some good stuff in there. I liked what they were exploring with the mental health of Michael Bean's character because of how deep in the ocean they were. I think The Abyss is fantastic. Now, given I've only seen The Abyss twice, and both times I did love it, but I haven't seen it in a few years, and I've watched all of his other movies again because James Cameron just refuses to give us these movies on physical release. And the last time I watched it was The Stream. I think they took it directly from a VHS that they found in a bargain bin because it looked absolutely atrocious. Kevin Elrow, top 5 comedies from the 1980s. So Turner and Hooch, Twins, those are numbers 1 and 2. If you count Beetlejuice as a comedy, Beetlejuice is definitely up there as well because it's one of my favorite movies from the 1980s. Beverly Hills Cop. And then I'm going to pick Coming to America. I quote before I put this shirt on, I had a Coming to America shirt on. Me and my wife, a bunch of my buddies. I quote Coming to America all the time. We're home of the Big Mick, not the Big Mac. Son, I'm going to tell you this one more time. If you want to continue to work here, stay off the drugs. I mean, that movie is perfect. Eddie Murphy just banging through different characters, doing it before he did it in The Nutty Professor. A little bit, I mean, it's definitely harder than The Nutty Professor, but is it as good as Coming to America? I don't know. Don't you try any of that falling down the stairs shit. You're still up. Love that movie. Folks Blu-ray. Tell them for folks, is that a movie? I haven't seen that if that is. Kevin L, favorite quotes from the 1980s movies. Ooh, well, there are so many from the 1980s. Obviously, we'll start right off the bat with Terminator. I'll be back. That's classic. He did it for the first time. Did anyone know that on paper it didn't? Arnold Schwarzenegger himself wanted to say I will be back, but they talked him into saying I'll be back. So luckily, we got that for it's Arnold's biggest quote of all time. He has to bang it out in every single movie he's in. Thinking just all from my favorite stuff from the 1980s. A lot of it's going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff. Hey, they still got you pushing pencils, and then he grabs his arm. Eddie Murphy stuff from just all of his movies. Oh, you tried the banana into the tailpipe trick? You get all that stuff from just Eddie Murphy banging out Eddie Murphy stuff. In movies, though, I mean, you get anything that Jack Nicholson said in Batman is probably something I quote all the time. Actually, I noticed something the other day from Batman '89 just because I love that movie. It's a stupid little passing thing that Jack Nicholson does, but he's on the screen and he's like brings in the girl and she's like, Jack, you said that I could watch you do art, and he just turns it to to the girl he's with. He's like, oh, I'm in trouble now. It's just such a Jack Nicholson thing to do. I was on a Jack Nicholson kick this week because I was watching some Kevin Pollak interviews. I don't know if you guys know who Kevin Pollak is, but he's in A Few Good Men and a bunch of other movies from the 1990s. He pops up in Casino as the Teamsters leader. But Kevin Pollak was doing interviews and just talking about Jack Nicholson. And man, I want to hang out with that guy. Look up some Kevin Pollak interviews from Jack Nicholson. He's amazing. Tell him Freddie said, he said Lighthouse looks beautiful. That is a beautiful box. I'm a little upset that I didn't get the 4K though, and I don't have it in me to like complain. I'm not just not one of those people. I'm very bad at it. So I don't have it in me to call them up and say, hey, I screwed up and ordered the wrong thing. Can I pay the difference and just get the 4K? So I kind of feel like I'm stuck with that Blu-ray instead of the 4K. That's why I never gave a review to you guys. Faithful Answer, what movie are you looking forward to that is coming out? I can tell you that I'm not excited about The Little Mermaid. That those trailers have looked pretty bad, but that's next weekend. That's the big Memorial Day weekend movie this year is The Little Mermaid live action film, which looks the CGI. It's making me sick just from the trailers. I'm very disappointed by what I'm seeing. I'm hoping it's good. But Disney and their live action remakes are very, very, very hit or miss. So the next movie I'm looking forward to is on June 2nd, and that is the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That movie looks good. I didn't know it was a part one until now, so that was a little disappointing. So I'm very excited for that. But then for me, we got Mission Impossible in the middle of July. Then the July 21st, we're getting Oppenheimer from Christopher Nolan. So that's probably what I'm looking forward to most. John, I found Unsolved Sisters on YouTube last summer and was watching it every night for a few months. See, me and you, man, we just operate on like the same level. I'm having an Ulster fry. Yeah, I mean, Unsolved Mysteries is fantastic. It's one of the most, if you guys, I mean, you'll get very nostalgic because they do all these reenactments. And you actually, fun fact, Matthew McConaughey got a start in one of those reenactments. I can't find it. I'm sure I could just YouTube it, but I would like to actually watch the show. So I watch them in order. And then I think to myself, like, you know, it's been like 40 years for some of these unsolved mysteries. I hope they solve some because the people doing the reporting at this point are dead. And we're not going to find out who. Some of these people are probably still missing and were never found. Very sad stuff. But just watching these reenactments, some of the acting is atrocious. I'm not saying I could do it. I don't know if I could act. I no one ever gave me the shot, but I definitely don't think I could be in that. And Shamrock Bowles then wrote, The Abyss to me is his attempt at Close Encounters underwater. I just found it boring. Listen, I completely respect that. It is no Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The Close Encounters, he kind of just incepted me because now I'm thinking like, it is kind of like Close Encounters, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, except Richard Dreyfuss doesn't abandon his family to go on an alien ship at the very end. But Close Encounters is a masterpiece. So, yeah, The Abyss doesn't reach those highs. I think Close Encounters might actually be Steven Spielberg's second or third best film. That's kind of been the one of his classics that nobody seems to bring up anymore. You kind of just bring up like the big three of Jaws, Jurassic Park, and E.T. Those seem to be the big three that everyone brings up. Even Schindler's List, which won him an Academy Award. Yeah, that's the subject matter because it's a tough watch, but that's still one of his best made movies. Shamrock Boss also wrote, I love Ghostbusters, Back to the Futures, Beverly Hills Cop, but are they strictly comedies? That is my question, especially with Ghostbusters. Back to the Future, I agree, might not be a complete comedy. Beverly Hills Cop, that's an action comedy, but I still consider that a comedy because it's really a vehicle for Eddie Murphy. That's him. They put that movie originally, it was going to be a Stallone movie. Actually, that's what they spun off in the Cobras because Stallone, obviously he had to do his Stallone stuff, so he had to put he's a writer director too, so he wanted to put his own little twist on it. But then it just became a vehicle for Eddie Murphy. A lot of that is improv stuff. So I do think that Beverly Hills Cop is an 80s comedy classic. Ghostbusters, I've always had a hard time with Ghostbusters because I don't laugh a lot at Ghostbusters, believe it or not. And I love Bill Murray. But when people ask me my favorite Bill Murray movie, there's a reason why I say Groundhog Day because I just think Bill Murray is one of the funniest people ever. I mean, he's one of the only reasons I go back and watch Kingpin, because Ernie McCracken is one of the greatest comedic performances ever. You know, I'll tell you what, that woman is a stone cold liar, because I always pull out. That line just gets me. Uh, Thanks so much for the shout out, John, from the original fuss. No problem, buddy. Anyone I could send your way, I will, because I love your videos, man. Tell him Freddie said Max Headroom is one of my favorite 80s shows. Oh my god, that guy. That's the guy from oh, I always just that guy freaks me out with his sunglasses and the way he jittered and stuff like that. I wasn't there watching that, so but when I saw it, I was like, oh wow, that's what people are into. But then I go back and watch stuff that I grew up with, and I'm like, I think I understand. What's your favorite 80s sex scene from Kevin L? The 80s were filled with a lot of bad sex scenes. Top Gun has one of the worst ever. I mean, Tom Cruise, he has no chemistry with women. This is why I think he's an alien, because the guy, look at him. Look at how he looks right now. He looks younger than me, and he's just jumping out of planes, doing whatever the hell he wants. But he just doesn't seem human. He had no chemistry ever, really, except for Jerry Maguire. He has great chemistry in Jerry Maguire with Renee Zellweger, but I don't think he's real. So his sex scene in Top Gun is awful. The sex scene in the Terminator, I think it's really good. It's very passionate. Definitely, she looks like she's into it. That's not my favorite sex scene ever, but I mean, I tell you, that's why I always say the Terminator checks every box. It's got everything in it but the comedy, but it's also got a wonderful love story between, falling in love in one day and saving the world, the future. And I love that movie. What other movies? I mean, we're not going to talk about like Porky's sex scenes or anything like that, because those I don't think hold up too well. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any like great sex scenes, because that's not usually what puts me in the theater, but I can't think of off the top of my head. Shamrock Balls wrote underneath this, he wrote, a suitable thing I like Nicholson does in Batman is his facial expressions just before he starts to kick the bricks off the ledge of the bell tower. Like a light bulb going off, lol. Yeah, Jack Nicholson, everything he does in that movie is perfect. Every time I go back and watch it, it's just the little things, the facial expressions, like you said, Shamrock, that he does. He's just firing on all cylinders, and that's the Joker I think of. That's what introduced me to Jack Nicholson. So everything that Jack Nicholson does, and that Jack Nicholson did win an Academy Award in the 80s for Terms of Endearment from 1981, I want to say, or 82, which I love that movie. That's a James L. Brooks movie. James L. Brooks put out 2 movies in the 80s. He put that out and Broadcast News. Jack Nicholson has a small role in Broadcast News as well, that he is fantastic in it. But he was the Joker, and that'll always be his best for me, because, yeah, the stuff he does. You'll never hit a man with glasses, would you? He throws them on as he gets the shit kicked out of him. Faith Williams wrote, frig off, we're seeing it. Yeah, I know. She's going to drag me to go see The Little Mermaid next week. I was hoping that maybe you guys could talk her out of it. I guess not. Yes, Close Encounters is my second favorite Spielberg movie. Spielberg said out of all his movies, that was the closest he ever got to his vision. That's from Shamrock Balls. I see it. I mean, that movie is perfect. Like, it's tough because I think E.T. is my favorite. Now, E.T. is my favorite because of nostalgic purposes. I grew up with E.T. That's a movie I saw 100 times before the age of 10. So that's a movie that's just ingrained into my life. But I do think that he made a masterpiece with Close Encounters of the Third Time. There's just so many magical moments in that movie. It builds up to an incredible final scene. It's almost perfect. And then the stuff with Richard Dreyfuss and just his family stuff, the family dynamic, because dealing with the divorce, or future divorce, I assume, separation of them, and the line when he's just sitting at the dinner table and has that breakdown, and his kids they're like freaked out, like, what does this man become? And he's like, I'm still dad. Like, he's got to reassure him, but he's not convinced anymore of the man he became. What an incredible performance by Richard Dreyfuss in that movie. I love that movie. Tell him Freddie says, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? It's just something I say to all of my prey. Love it. Ghostbusters is so funny, and to be honest, as an adult, Bill Murray is kind of annoying. I love Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. So as far as Bill Murray goes, so Bill Murray is one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. You hear the stuff about him lately and being a dick on set. I think he got fired from a job and that stuff all. It's a little tough when you're a Bill Murray fan. You like that dry sense of humor that he has, and then you find out, well, maybe he had that falling out with Harold Ramis on the set of um why am I drawing a blank on the movie I love, on Groundhog Day, where they didn't talk until he was on his deathbed, Harold Ramis. And, so you find out that Bill Murray, he's a weird dude. He definitely is. He definitely operates in one of those boxes where it's the world kind of revolves around him and he's not really looking to work with everybody else, if that's the best way to put it. But I can't lie and say I don't find the guy fucking hysterical. Dan Aykroyd is also really hysterical. I love Dan Aykroyd. The sex scene in the Naked Gun. How did I not bring up the Naked Gun yet? The Naked Leslie Nielsen. This is where he took off, was in the 1980s. Before that, before 1980s Airplane, nobody knew that Leslie Nielsen could do comedy, and that's all he did until he died, was comedy. He even pops up in Scary Movie 3, if you could believe that one. So Leslie Nielsen was doing every single thing. But yeah, the Naked Gun trilogy, I got to go back and revisit those because I haven't seen those in a very long time. But this is what Leslie Nielsen did. If you like him in Airplane, basically that's just what he did for the rest of his career. I even remember back in the 90s, he was a part of wrestling, and it was going to be an Undertaker versus Undertaker feud. And Leslie Nielsen was investigating it. So every week on Raw, he'd pop up investigating the Undertaker and who's the real Undertaker. It's ridiculous, but that's just what Leslie Nielsen did. But I love Leslie Nielsen. I 100% agree. Love Jack Nicholson's show ever since I seen it in 1989. Yes, and Tell him Freddie said it wrote same Shamrock, and then Shamrock. Yes, Dreyfus is amazing in that. I remember Undertaker angle too, John. Yeah, that was ridiculous. I mean, the match. The match wasn't great, but at least we had some fun stuff leading up to it. It was a real Undertaker and fake Undertaker. That was a lot of fun. But Dreyfus yeah, he was great. I love him. He's a phenomenal actor, very underrated actor. I know he's getting some shit now for some dumb comments he's made, but let's just all remember that the man's very old, and Richard Dreyfuss has been speaking out of the side of his mouth for a long time. He even says that he doesn't remember doing the movie Stand By Me, which I find unbelievable because he narrates it. So go figure on that one. Oh, what time is it? So it's just funny. But yeah, Richard Dreyfuss. Do you guys feel like he aged really fast? So he's in Jaws 1975, and then there's this movie called Once Around that came out in, I think, like 1989, and the guy looks 105. So he just aged so fast, but he's such a good actor. Oh, tell him Freddie, not Freddie. Tell him Freddie sent you. Just asked me Jacob's Ladder thoughts. I love Jacob's Ladder. That is a phenomenal question. Tim Robbins, that's a great movie. Who did that movie? Director who made something else really good. But that movie, if you want to see a really good psychological thriller dealing with the Vietnam War, Danny Aiello is in that movie. Such a good movie. Very it's a tough one though. And as far as, it's one of the most scary movies I've ever seen. It's horrific. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but that's one of those movies that has a young Macaulay Culkin's also in that movie. But if you've never seen that, that is one of the most, that's going to get under your skin. I think I might watch that tonight. I watch Jacob's Ladder every year, but the way that movie feels, the world they create, and the color palette, it's dirty. It looks gross. The world that he lives in, like he works with everywhere he goes, like the subway, everything looks disgusting. But I love Jacob's Ladder. I would love a 4K of that. I believe that was 1990, but I could be wrong on that. And he said, "What about Bob as well?" Yeah, that's a classic. Another that's Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray. That's a classic one. Richard Dreyfuss is fantastic. Again, he looks ridiculously old in that movie, but Richard Dreyfuss is awesome in What About Bob? I love him in that. Him and Bill Murray have great comedic chemistry in that. I'm sailing. What else we got going on? I think I covered all my favorite 80s stuff. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other stuff. One thing I wanted to bring up off the top of my head was June of 1982. We got Poltergeist, The Thing, Wrath of Kong, and Blade Runner all in the same month. Some of you guys were around, I think, then, probably not old enough to go to the theaters, but can you imagine every week getting to go see those movies? I would lose my mind. Oh my God, Friday the 13th with the headphones. Yeah, that is a crazy movie death. I'll tell you that. That's Kevin Bacon. He gets it through the neck. You can tell it's a prop because his skin tone completely changed. Uh, what a time, tell him Freddie sent you. Yeah, the world is just a different place. And I was watching 3 o'clock high yesterday. I'm just watching how they maneuver through their school day. Like I went to school before cell phones, but just do you think that maybe we a lot of the school drama was created because those are the people you had to interact with every day for 6 hours? You have no way of actually speaking to other people. So I'm not 100% sure what it is, but like the world just looked funner. It just looked like everyone seemed happier. Yes, the 80s, that's one thing with the 80s is like the cocaine 80s, I like to call them. Everything was moving along fast, everything was fastly paced, but it looked like just I think that's what attracts me to the 1980s cinema is just how much fun everybody seems to be having for the most part. There's obviously that just in general for the 1980s. And John Drivers had an addiction problem in the late 70s, early 80s. He's one of my favorite actors, but he never reached the height he did in the 70s. I think fame got to him. Uh yeah, I guess I didn't know that actually. I had no idea that he had an addiction problem, if I'm being 100% honest. That's crazy, but that would definitely explain a lot as far as the person of Richard Dreyfuss because yeah, he never did get to those highs again and it's incredible because he really was one of the greatest actors ever. And I mean, he's an Academy Award winning actor we're talking about here and it never seemed like he half-assed the performance. Just I haven't gotten to see him reach those highs that he ever reached again. Like once the 1990s came around, he was just popping up and stuff. And it's a shame the guy made Jaws and Close Encounters. And then how many other great movies was he in where he's just doing a good job acting? I mean, like, yeah, he did the narration and Stand By Me. He's phenomenal. I didn't know he had an addiction problem. I guess that makes sense. And fame can be tough for anyone. I completely understand that. And, we all want to be famous until we are famous. Isn't that like the golden line? They live seems like a reality now. LOL wrote telling Freddie Senya. Yeah, it really does. And you know what? That would explain a lot, honestly. If there were aliens walking amongst us, I think that would definitely explain a lot of the issues that we have in this world. But I think a lot of people can see the subtext in our world now and what actually is being directed towards us. So that's another thing. Oh, impressive. Tony's in here. I'm behind on the stream, but where I'm at, you just mentioned Batman 89. I don't know if it's the best Batman movie, but it's certainly the ruler by which all other Batman movies are measured. I agree with that 110%. Even if Batman 89 is not your favorite Batman movie, you can at least agree in the sense that it's where me and Shamrock Balls actually had this conversation last week where I thought that superhero movies kind of really took off when we got to X-Men. That was kind of where that's when we kind of started to get to the path that we're heading on now with superhero movies, where we get a superhero movie every month and 6 million Disney Plus shows. But he said that it was Batman 89. And, thinking about it, he's probably right because before that, we just had Superman. Superman was this good guy. He was a superhero. He was never operating in the gray. He never did a bad thing. He would never cross any single line. He's going to literally bring Lex Luger to the warden of a prison. Have you seen Shawshank Redemption? Because wardens aren't always the most trustworthy people, but he is in the Superman universe. And that's what we got was bringing it back. So when we got to Batman 89, that's where really, we got Batman. I'm not the biggest comic book reader, but I know Frank Miller's Batman, The Killing Joke, The Dark Knight. That's the stuff where we start to really get that stuff. And also, as far as Impressive Tony goes, if you guys haven't subscribed to him yet, make sure you do that as well. He does some great trailer reactions and movie reviews. And man, he just hit 1,000 subscribers. So he's awesome. You should definitely check him out as well if you guys are a fan of, film. He's one of the best. But yeah, Batman 89. I mean, I'll talk about Batman 89 forever because that's just a movie that I adore from just beginning to end. Just even little scenes like just the Batmobile driving with the leaves flying around. Again, looks incredible. I can't say a bad thing about Batman. Batman 89. But that is probably where the turn happened. And tell him Freddie said, oh, and we got our first super chat, just showing some support for the homies. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Impressive Tony. Again, guys, check his channel out. He just hit 1,000 subscribers. He's one of the best. And that's our first super chat editor ever. I really appreciate that so much. Thank you so much. The super chats are on. You don't have to put anything in. I'm going to answer your questions, the best I can as far as that. I guess I never noticed that it lights up in blue, I guess, so that, I've tried to answer everyone's questions as I go, because these are a lot of fun. I think this is going to become a Saturday thing here with me, guys, is I'm going to do something. We'll pick a subject every single week. 1980s movies was an easy one because it got 60% of the vote. So I guess 19, the rest of them, I didn't put 70s on there because I do want to talk about that. And that'll probably be the next one. I do love 70s movies. Thoughts on Angel Heart? Well, first of all, great 4K. Love Angel Heart. I think that is one of the most underrated movies of the 1980s. That is Mickey Rourke, and you get Robert De Niro playing the devil, if you can believe that one. Louis Cypher. That movie has one of the best twist endings. I've heard people actually knock that movie and say like it doesn't do a good job, and the way they depict Los Angeles and voodoo is not like the most accurate, and it can be a little bit offensive. And I can appreciate that. I didn't feel that while watching the movie. I remember somebody telling me last year, because what's her name is in this movie, the former Mrs. Jason Momoa. My wife should correct me on here because she knows off the top of her head. I cannot remember her name. I'm so sorry. I'm drawing a blank on it. And she, from the Cosby Show, she was Denise. Why am I drawing a blank on her? Lisa Bonet. There's a very violent rape scene in that movie with her, and it can be a little brutal and tough to watch. But the movie itself, I mean, the first time I saw that twist ending, it got me. And when you watch the movie now with all the clues, yeah, it's all there. It's just amazing that Mickey Rourke was such a phenomenal actor, and then he got his face all beaten up when he started boxing. And I hate his performance in Iron Man 2, but when he came back and did The Wrestler, I was happy for him because the guy was a great actor, especially in the 1980s and especially in Angel Heart. So if you haven't seen Angel Heart, definitely check that one out because that's a very underrated film from the 80s. And you get Robert De Niro in there. That always will just kill me. But what else came out in the 1980s that you guys want to talk about? What time is it right now? Is it 3:05? So I'm actually probably going to get out of here right now. I have to finish editing tomorrow's Let's Talk Physical Media, and then I actually have to get ordained. Let me see. We got one more chat in here. John, I don't want to step on anyone's tones, but do you fancy doing a Batman 89 commentary sometime? I would love to do a Batman 89 commentary sometime. Are you saying that we do it together? Because I would love to do that as well. And Tell him Freddie wrote, night, everyone. Good night, Tell him Freddie sent you. Thanks for being here, man. I really do appreciate that. And yeah, no, definitely want to do a Batman 89 commentary. 110%. I could do that in my sleep. But actually just want to give you guys a little bit just some notice for tomorrow's show. Make sure you guys tune in to tomorrow's Let's Talk Physical Media. We have a big channel announcement that you guys are definitely not going to want to miss. Everybody who was here in the chat, thank you so much. We'll do this again next Saturday, same time, same bat place, same bat channel. We'll do it at 2 p.m. We'll pick a subject. Everybody who was here, thank you so much. Impressive Tony, thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate that. I subscribe to him, subscribe to the Original Fuzz. They have great YouTube channels. Everybody in here, thank you all so much. Really do appreciate all your support. This is a lot of fun. I'm telling you, I can't believe it's over an hour. It flies by. Thank you guys all so much. Over and out.